So over the past couple of weeks, the Montreal Canadiens have been struggling a little bit, to say the least. We're going to take a look at the Canadiens, where they sit right now. Is there a chance they can make the playoffs? Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe. Let's take a look at the Montreal Canadiens. So the Montreal Canadiens, a team that we know has been clamoring for success. They haven't made the playoffs in a little bit now. Feels like forever. They find themselves 5th in the Atlantic Division, 23rd in the NHL. There's definitely some growing issues throughout Montreal right now. A little bit of groaning from the Canadiens fans, and rightfully so. They want to be in the playoffs this year. They feel like they have a playoff caliber team. They have some really great prospects that have been coming in. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Ryan Poehling, Nick Suzuki, as well as many other guys throughout the roster. They need them to continue to step up. You have some veterans in Carey Price in the net, Shea Weber on the defense. This is a team that needs to get things going and get in the playoffs this year. That is absolutely the expectation for the Canadiens. The Canadiens right now, through 27 games this season, have 11 wins. They've lost 10 games, and they've gone to overtime and lost, or a shootout and lost, with 6 points there. So, overall, they have 28 points on the season so far. They're only 2 points back of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have a game in hand nonetheless. And they also, they're right there. And that's again, Toronto was struggling. They fired their head coach. And the world was on fire for the Leafs, being pretty much in the same spot the Habs are right now. The Habs are struggling right now. It's a lack of scoring, really, from the Canadiens. They need some more goals. You look at their plus-minus differential. One of the weaker teams in that category. They're a -7 there. There's been rumors that they could be in on a guy like Taylor Hall through a trade. They wanted to get Matt Duchene over the summer. Possibly, Duchene grew up watching the Montreal Canadiens. Could he come to Montreal? He ended up going to Nashville. So, the Canadiens definitely tried at different points. They tried offer sheeting. Well, they did. They offer sheeted Sebastian Aho. Fortunately, the Canadiens accepted that, and they ended up taking the money. So, nonetheless, the Canadiens are not in a terrible spot. They're struggling right now, as we all know, but the Canadiens really aren't that far off in terms of the team overall. Taking a look at the stats for the Canadiens. All right, so taking a look at the points leaders for the Montreal Canadiens. So leading the way with 24 points on the season is Tomas Tatar with 24 points on the season. Shea Weber has the second most points with 21. Brendan Gallagher and Philip Deneau each have 19 points on the season. And to round out the top 5, you have 17 points for Max Domi. Leading the way in goals for the Canadiens right now is Brendan Gallagher with 10 goals on the season. He's tied with Joel Armia on that tally with 10 goals himself. And at third in that category is Tomas Tatar with 9 goals. Leading the way in assists, you heard it again, Thomas Tatar with 15 assists on the season. Shea Weber with 13 assists on the season. And Philip Deneau, same amount of points as Shea Weber with 13. Leading the way in the plus-minus for the Canadiens, Shea Weber, Victor Mete each have 6 leading the way, and Philip Deneau with a +5. And taking a look at ice time, Jeff Petrie leads the way in terms of time on ice per game with almost 24 minutes of ice time, 23 minutes and 55 seconds. Shea Weber with a little under that, 23.5 minutes. And Ben Sherratt at third with 22.5 minutes. Taking a look at the goaltending, Carey Price has a .318 goals against average. Keith Kincaid has a .424 goals against. He was actually just waived by the Montreal Canadiens earlier today. Save percentage, Carey Price has an .898 save percentage, so under .900. Very uncharacteristic of Carey Price. And Keith Kincaid with an .875. Again, he has been waived at this point. Carey Price has 10 wins on the season. The only other goaltender, which is Keith Kincaid, has the other lone win for the Canadiens. Carey Price has 1 shutout. That's all for the shutouts for the Canadiens. So, what is going on with the Canadiens? Well, there's a couple things. And the big thing being, Carey Price is not himself right now. He's had some injuries over the past couple of years. Hasn't played as much hockey as we are used to, really, ever since that hit by Chris Kreider in the playoffs a couple of years ago in the Eastern Conference Final when they played the New York Rangers. Carey Price has not been himself up until that point. The Canadiens definitely have some issues up front as well. On the back end, you see some names you maybe haven't heard of, or different guys. Overall, I think the defense is pretty solid for the Canadiens. They have some pretty solid guys there. Shea Weber is very good. Ben Sherrod has come in from Winnipeg and been a really nice addition. So that was a good pickup there by Bergevin. But Carey Price, at the end of the day, he is the franchise of the Canadiens. When you think of the Montreal Canadiens over the past decade, it has been Carey Price. We know Pierre Maguire, said all the things he said about him at the draft. This is an awful draft pick by the Canadiens. Yeah, he's turned out to be pretty good, Pierre, so maybe sit back on that one. But nonetheless, Carey Price is a huge part of this team. They tried changing that a little bit by adding Shea Weber, who was a very elite defenseman in Nashville. Definitely not at the same level he was back in his prime, but still a very solid defenseman. We've seen Jeff Petrie really come up. So the Canadiens have some defensemen. The only thing that really concerns me about the Canadiens is their guys up front. And this is no credit to Tomas Tatar. He's a very solid forward since they've brought him in from Vegas. But he was basically exiled when he went to the Vegas Golden Knights. Detroit got a lot of draft picks for him. Tatar went to Vegas, really couldn't find any success. He was flipped back. He ended up going to the Canadiens. And he's really found some success. But when you need guys like Tatar and you see him leading the team in points and things like that, it's a good thing that he's there. But they need some of these other guys. Again, they're developing and things like that. But you need a staple guy there. And that's where you need a guy like Jonathan Drouin. In the future, Ryan Poehling, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Nick Suzuki. Those are the guys that we're going to be talking about for the Canadiens over the next decade. As well as some little guy that they got in the draft this year. He's a pretty solid player as well, playing in Wisconsin right now. So, this is a team that has to continue to find, consistency in net. That's why I think that's a huge reason they waived Keith Kinkaid. I think there is a move coming for the Montreal Canadiens. They're going to look to get a solid, 1A, 1B option with Carey Price and another goaltender, because when you rely on Carey Price as much as the Canadiens do, you need someone who at least come in there that can at least get you a couple of wins. And they really haven't had that with Keith Kinkaid so far. He was, the reason they brought him in was for morale. They really liked the way he was in the interview when they talked to Keith Kinkaid. But besides that, he was kind of an option out of many. So the Canadiens can pick someone else up, see what they could do, send Keith Kinkaid to the minors. Hopefully he could rediscover his game. He really hasn't had his game for the past couple of years. Struggled last year with the Devils. Really didn't play with the Blue Jackets when he was traded there. So at the end of the day, the Canadiens, again, there's some issues, but the goaltending has to get better. That's the biggest thing. And I think if Carey Price plays a little bit less, he may be a better defenseman. And there were some weird goals. I mean, goals I watched over the last couple of weeks. He's given up weird goals where, he just doesn't get it. He doesn't close his arm enough and the puck just squeezes by, or, really fluky goals and very uncharacteristic of the Carey Price that we are used to. So let me know, what do you think is the biggest problems with this team right now in Montreal? And do you think they could still get into the playoffs? Remember, they're only 2 points out. They're a game behind the Toronto Maple Leafs as well. So definitely not out of the possibility that they get into the playoffs, but they're going to need some help. And the fact that they've been talking about possibly trading for a guy like Taylor Hall could definitely be a huge addition for the Montreal Canadiens. So thank you for watching. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe. Check out our Instagram as well, @GoalLineHockey. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.